Imagine being arrested for nothing, by a cop who doesn't even know he's messing with the one person who can take him down. The streets of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, were quiet at this hour. Monica Carter, a 38-year-old state attorney, had just wrapped up a long day at the courthouse. Her mind was still racing with legal strategies as she steered her black Lexus down Perkins Road, heading home. The streetlights stretched ahead, casting faint glows on the near-empty road. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. Another email. Probably about tomorrow's meeting with the Attorney General's office. She sighed, exhausted but focused, as she signaled to merge into the right lane. That's when she saw them. Red and blue lights exploded behind her, flashing through the rearview mirror like a warning shot. A sharp breath escaped her lips. She wasn't speeding. She wasn't swerving. What now? Monica exhaled, steadying herself as she pulled to the side. She knew the routine. Hands on the wheel, no sudden movements. Interior lights on. The weight of her own experience, both as a black woman and as a legal professional, pressed heavy on her chest. A police cruiser rolled up behind her, and a figure emerged. Officer Greg Hensley, young, broad-shouldered, and walking with a sense of authority that felt just a little too forced. Monica lowered her window before he could tap. "Good evening, officer. Is there a problem?" Her voice was calm, measured. Hensley tilted his head, flashlight flicking across her face, then over to her briefcase on the passenger seat. "License and registration." His tone was clipped, detached. Monica reached over slowly, grabbing her wallet from her bag. "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" He didn't answer. Just stared at her ID for a long moment before glancing back at her. Failed to signal that last turn. Monica knew better. She had signaled twice, out of habit. It was a weak excuse, but she wasn't about to argue. Not yet. "I see. Well, I'm actually a—" Hensley cut her off. "Where are you headed tonight?" Monica's grip tightened on the wheel. "Home." His flashlight lingered over the interior of her car. The briefcase. The neatly pressed navy blue pantsuit she was still wearing from court. The air shifted. "Step out of the vehicle." The words hit like a hammer. Monica blinked, lips parting in disbelief. "Excuse me?" "I said, step out of the car." She swallowed the burn rising in her throat. She had seen cases like this. Too many times. She knew what this was. "Officer, I'm a state attorney. I just left work." "I don't care who you are," Hensley snapped. "Step out." A slow, unsettling realization set in. He wasn't listening. He had already made up his mind about her. She had two choices, comply or escalate. And she already knew how that second option ended. Monica inhaled deeply, then pushed open the door. But something about the way Hensley reached for his holster made her stomach turn. The pavement felt cool beneath Monica's heels as she stepped out of the car, keeping her movements controlled. Hands visible, back straight. Hensley took a half step back, one hand hovering near his gun. Monica held his gaze. "There's no need for that." Hensley's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning her like he was searching for a reason to justify whatever he had already decided in his mind. "Turn around." Hands on the roof of the car. A sharp breath filled Monica's lungs, but she held it in. "Not here. Not like this." "Officer, I have no weapons. I've committed no crime," she said, her voice controlled, though her pulse pounded. "You're refusing to comply?" His voice shifted, an edge of challenge creeping in. Monica met his stare, unflinching. "I'm asking for a valid reason. Failing to signal doesn't warrant a search." Hensley smirked, like he had been waiting for that. "You're being uncooperative." The word sent a cold ripple through Monica's chest. She had heard it too many times before in court, sitting across from defendants who had been pulled over for nothing, then turned into a threat simply because they existed in the wrong skin. She closed her eyes for a brief second, grounding herself. She needed to think clearly. "I'd like to speak with your sergeant," she said firmly. That's when everything shifted. Before she could process what was happening, Hensley grabbed her arm, hard. She stumbled slightly, catching herself against the car. "Hey!" Monica snapped, jerking back. "You're out of line." Hensley didn't hesitate. He spun her around, yanking her arm behind her back. Pain shot up Monica's shoulder as she gasped. "You can't do this!" "You're resisting arrest," Hensley muttered, voice flat like this was just another routine call. Monica struggled to turn her head, panic clawing at her chest. "For what?" she shouted. But he didn't answer, because he didn't have to. The cold snap of metal hit her wrists, the sharp bite of handcuffs locking in place. The world felt suffocatingly small. The sounds of traffic in the distance blurred into nothing. This wasn't happening. Not to her. Not to a state attorney who had spent her entire career fighting against this very abuse of power. And yet, here she was. She squeezed her eyes shut, swallowing the rage building like fire inside her. Not here. Not now. Hensley gripped her arm, steering her toward his squad car. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded, twisting slightly to look at him. "You'll find out soon enough," he said, shoving her forward. The door slammed behind her. The weight of reality sank in. She was under arrest. For what? Existing? Asking questions? Challenging authority that had no right to do this? Her breathing slowed. She flexed her fingers against the cuffs, feeling the sting of metal against her skin. She wasn't afraid. She was furious. And Greg Hensley had no idea what he had just done. But he was about to find out. The squad car smelled of stale coffee and sweat. Monica sat rigid in the back seat, her wrists aching from the too tight cuffs, her breathing slow and measured. Outside, the streetlights blurred past. But she wasn't focused on that. She was replaying everything, every word, every movement, every decision Hensley had made. He wanted this to happen. The car rattled slightly as it rolled over a pothole. Up front, Hensley was silent, gripping the wheel with one hand, the other resting near his radio. Monica's voice cut through the space between them. "You know this is a mistake." Hensley didn't respond. Her jaw clenched. "You had no probable cause to search my car, no reason to escalate. You realize that, right?" Still nothing. Monica leaned forward slightly, her voice lower now, controlled but edged with something dangerous. "When we get to the station, I want my phone call." A smirk twitched at the corner of Hensley's mouth as he glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Yeah?" he said finally. "Who you calling? Your boyfriend?" Monica didn't blink. "The Attorney General." The smirk vanished. For the first time since this started, Hensley hesitated. Monica saw the flicker of doubt, just for a second. But then, just like that, he recovered. "Nice try," he muttered. "You can tell that to booking." Monica leaned back, exhaling slowly. Let him believe what he wanted. Because everything was about to change. The squad car pulled into the precinct parking lot. Hensley stepped out first, slamming his door before yanking hers open. He grabbed her firmly, pulling her out with just enough force to make a statement. But Monica didn't resist. She walked ahead, her heels clicking against the pavement, her head held high. Every officer in the precinct was about to find out exactly who she was. And she couldn't wait to see their faces. The fluorescent lights inside East Baton Rouge police station buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow over the booking area. Monica walked in with her back straight, her wrists still cuffed, her mind razor-sharp. Hensley guided her forward, his grip unnecessarily tight around her arm. He wanted to prove a point. Monica let him. At the front desk, a stocky officer in his mid-50s glanced up from his paperwork. Sergeant Roy Blanchard. Salt and pepper hair, thick mustache, the kind of cop who had seen everything. "What you got, Hensley?" he asked, barely looking up. Hensley straightened his stance. "Caught her driving reckless. Wouldn't cooperate." Monica let out a sharp breath, almost a laugh. Sergeant Blanchard finally looked at her. His gaze flicked from her tailored pantsuit to her briefcase still tucked under Hensley's arm, then to her face. And that's when it happened. Recognition. Blanchard's expression shifted instantly. "Wait a damn minute." His eyes widened. "Is that—" Monica tilted her head slightly, the first trace of a smirk forming. "Monica Carter," she said evenly. "State attorney." Silence. A thick, awkward silence. Blanchard's face paled. His eyes darted to Hensley, then back to Monica. Then, just like that, he was moving. "Hensley, get those cuffs off her. Now." Hensley frowned. "Sir, she—" "I said now." Hensley hesitated, fingers twitching near his belt. "Jesus Christ." Blanchard shoved past him and unlocked the cuffs himself. Monica rolled her shoulders as they came loose, rubbing her wrists where the metal had dug in. The room was dead quiet. Blanchard turned on Hensley, voice low and sharp. "Do you have any idea who you just arrested?" Hensley stiffened. She refused to comply. Blanchard's expression darkened. "She's the damn prosecutor overseeing police misconduct cases for the entire state." The color drained from Hensley's face. Monica took her time, reaching into her bag, the one Hensley had rifled through like she was some suspect. She pulled out a sleek black business card and placed it gently on the booking desk. It read, "Monica Carter, State Attorney's Office, Civil Rights Division." Hensley swallowed hard. For the first time all night, he looked unsure. Monica met his eyes, her voice calm but lethal. "You just made the worst mistake of your career." Blanchard turned back to Monica, his tone different now. Careful, respectful. "Ms. Carter, I sincerely apologize. This is a misunderstanding." Monica's gaze didn't waver. "No, Sergeant. This is a pattern." Blanchard exhaled slowly, pressing his fingers to his forehead. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked quietly. Monica smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Yes," she said. "I'd like my phone call. Because tomorrow the entire city would know exactly what happened tonight." The phone in the sergeant's office rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Robert, it's me." A pause, then a shift in tone, sharp, alert. "Robert Keller, Attorney General of Louisiana." "Monica, what's going on?" Monica glanced toward the one-way glass where she knew Blanchard and Hensley were likely standing, watching, waiting. "I was just arrested." Silence. Then measured fury. "Where?" Monica gave him the address. "I'm on my way," he said. Click. She set the phone down gently, smoothing her suit as she stood. Blanchard cleared his throat. "Ms. Carter, Monica held up a hand. "Don't." His mouth shut. A tension-filled 20 minutes later, the doors burst open. Robert Keller walked in like a storm, tall, commanding, a man who never wasted words. Behind him, 2 state investigators. The room froze. Keller's eyes landed on Monica. "Are you all right?" Monica nodded once. "I will be." Keller turned to Blanchard. "Sergeant, let's talk about how one of your officers just arrested my state prosecutor on a fabricated charge." Blanchard visibly swallowed. "Sir, we—" Keller cut him off. "Not here. In your office. Now." Blanchard rushed ahead, leading them inside. Hensley, still standing near the desk, shifted uneasily. For the first time that night, he looked small. Monica walked up beside him, close enough that her voice was only for him. "You thought I was just some woman you could push around," she said quietly. "You thought my voice wouldn't matter." Hensley didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. But Monica wasn't done. "I handle cases like this every day, Officer Hensley. You know what happens next." He swallowed, but didn't look at her. "You'll be investigated. Your body cam footage will be reviewed. Your record will be pulled." Hensley's breathing hitched. "And when the world sees what you did tonight?" She exhaled slowly. "You won't just be another cop with a badge." Her voice lowered. "You'll be a liability." Hensley said nothing, because he already knew she was right. Moments later, the door to the sergeant's office flew open. Keller stepped out first, his expression set like stone. "Monica," he said, "we're pressing charges." Hensley's breath caught, and just like that, his career was over. But this wasn't just about him. This was about every time a badge was used as a weapon. Every person without her title, without her connections, without her power, who had been pulled over and never given the chance to fight back. Tonight, Monica had power, and she was damn well going to use it. The next morning, Monica woke up to her phone buzzing non-stop. News outlets, colleagues, civil rights groups. The story had already broken. By noon, body cam footage was released. The world saw everything. How Hensley's tone changed the moment he saw her face, how he ignored her credentials, dismissed her rights, and escalated without cause. And people were angry. The mayor's office issued a statement. An internal investigation was launched. Hensley was suspended without pay. But Monica knew what would happen next. They would call this a one-time mistake. They would say Hensley was just one bad officer, but she had spent her career in courtrooms proving otherwise. That night, she stood in front of the cameras, looking directly into the lens. "This isn't about me," she said. "It's about what happens when power is abused. It's about the people who don't have an attorney general on speed dial, the people who don't make the news." The microphones flashed. Journalists scribbled notes. But Monica wasn't done. "We keep saying bad apples, but we never talk about the trees that grow them." A hush settled over the crowd. This stops when we start holding law enforcement truly accountable, when we change the system that allows this to happen, over and over again. She let those words sink in before she spoke the last ones. "I was lucky, but I shouldn't have had to be." The press conference ended, but the conversation had only just begun. That night, Monica sat alone in her office, staring out over the city. She had spent years fighting for justice in courtrooms. But maybe, just maybe, her next fight would be even bigger. Because this was just the beginning. If this story made you feel something, don't let it end here. Demand accountability, speak out, stay informed, vote for change. Because if Monica's story teaches us anything, it's that power only changes when people refuse to stay silent.